The tension between Iran and the United States Navy has once again reached a boiling point, sending shockwaves across global political and military circles. What initially appeared to be a calculated show of force has rapidly escalated into a high-stakes confrontation that many experts are now calling one of the most dangerous moments in recent Middle Eastern history. For millions of Americans watching closely, the question is no longer if the situation will escalate, but how far it could go. In the early hours of what officials are describing as a critical incident, Iranian naval forces reportedly made aggressive maneuvers near strategic waterways long dominated by U.S. military presence. These waters are not just symbolic, they are vital arteries for global oil supply and international trade. Any disruption here doesn't just affect the region, it impacts gas prices, economic stability, and national security concerns back home in the United States. According to defense analysts, this was not a random act. Iran has been increasingly testing the limits of U.S. tolerance in the region, using a mix of fast attack boats, drone surveillance, and coordinated naval tactics. The goal? To send a clear message, Iran is willing to challenge American dominance in its own backyard. But what may have been intended as a strategic signal is now being viewed by many as a dangerous miscalculation. The United States Navy, known for its unmatched global power and rapid response capabilities, did not take long to react. Within minutes of the reported encounter, U.S. vessels shifted into high alert mode, surveillance systems locked on to Iranian movements, and fighter jets were reportedly deployed to monitor the situation from above. While no immediate shots were fired, insiders say the margin for error was razor thin. One wrong move could have triggered a full-scale military response. For American audiences, this isn't just another distant conflict. It raises serious questions about national security, military readiness, and the potential for a broader war that could involve multiple global powers. The United States has long maintained a strong naval presence in the region precisely to prevent scenarios like this. Yet the boldness of Iran's latest move suggests a shift in strategy, one that could redefine the balance of power. Military experts are divided on whether this was a calculated risk or a major strategic blunder. Some believe Iran is attempting to leverage rising geopolitical tensions to its advantage, testing how far it can push without provoking a direct confrontation. Others argue that challenging the United States Navy, arguably the most powerful naval force in history, could backfire in ways that Tehran may not be fully prepared to handle. Behind the scenes, U.S. defense officials are reportedly holding emergency briefings, analyzing every detail of the encounter. Satellite imagery, radar data, and communication intercepts are all being reviewed to determine intent and next steps. While official statements remain measured, the underlying message is clear. The United States is watching closely, and it is ready. Meanwhile, global markets are already reacting. Oil prices have shown signs of volatility, and international allies are expressing concern over the growing instability. Nations across Europe and Asia are urging restraint, but history has shown that once tensions reach this level, de-escalation becomes increasingly difficult. What makes the situation even more unpredictable is the broader geopolitical landscape. With multiple conflicts and rivalries already unfolding around the world, any escalation between Iran and the United States Navy could trigger a chain reaction. Allies could be drawn in, trade routes could be disrupted, and the global economy could face serious consequences. For now, the world waits. Was this a warning shot in a larger strategy, or the beginning of something far more serious? One thing is certain, the stakes have never been higher, and the next move by either side could change everything. As new details continue to emerge, the confrontation between Iran and the United States Navy is being described by insiders as far more intense than initially reported. What the public saw as a brief standoff may have in reality been a complex and highly coordinated military encounter that pushed both sides dangerously close to open conflict. According to defense sources familiar with the situation, Iranian vessels didn't just approach U.S. ships, they executed what experts call harassment patterns, a tactic designed to pressure and test enemy responses without crossing the line into outright war. Fast-moving boats reportedly closed in at high speed, maneuvering unpredictably, while aerial drones hovered above, collecting intelligence and broadcasting a show of force. It was a message that could not be ignored. For the United States Navy, every second of that encounter required calculated precision. U.S. commanders are trained for these moments, where the difference between restraint and retaliation can shape global events. Warships adjusted their formations, communication channels were secured, and defensive systems were quietly activated, ready but not yet unleashed. What makes this incident especially alarming is the location. The encounter reportedly took place near the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical choke points in the world. Nearly a fifth of the world's oil supply passes through this narrow stretch of water every day. Any military escalation here wouldn't just be a regional issue, it would instantly become a global crisis, affecting fuel prices, shipping routes, and economic stability across continents. Military analysts believe Iran has been refining these tactics for years, learning how to operate just below the threshold of war. By avoiding direct engagement while still applying pressure, Iran creates a gray zone conflict, one that is difficult to respond to without risking escalation. But this time, many argue, they may have pushed too far. Inside U.S. command centers, the mood reportedly shifted from routine monitoring to high alert within minutes. Real-time intelligence feeds showed the proximity of Iranian forces tightening. Some officials have hinted that warning signals may have been issued, clear indications that any further aggression would be met with immediate force. The fact that no shots were fired is being described as a result of disciplined restraint, but also a stark reminder of how close the situation came to spiraling out of control. For American viewers, this raises a critical question. How often do moments like this happen without the public knowing? Experts suggest that similar encounters may be more common than reported, but rarely reach this level of intensity. The difference this time was the scale, the coordination, and the boldness of the move. Meanwhile, political leaders in Washington are facing mounting pressure to respond. Some are calling for a stronger military stance, arguing that allowing Iran to challenge U.S. forces without consequences could encourage further aggression. Others warn that overreaction could ignite a full-scale conflict, one that the American public is not prepared for. Behind closed doors, discussions are reportedly underway about increasing naval presence, enhancing surveillance operations, and reinforcing alliances in the region. The United States Navy remains one of the most powerful forces on the planet, but even overwhelming strength must be used carefully in a situation where a single miscalculation could have irreversible consequences. Adding to the tension is the psychological dimension of this confrontation. By directly challenging U.S. naval authority, Iran is not just testing military limits, it is shaping perception. In the world of geopolitics, perception can be just as powerful as reality. A show of defiance, even without conflict, can influence allies, embolden rivals, and shift the narrative on the global stage. As the dust settles, for now, questions remain unanswered. Was this a one-time provocation or the beginning of a new pattern? Are we witnessing the early stages of a larger strategy designed to weaken U.S. influence in the region? Or was this, as some experts believe, a misstep that could provoke a stronger and more decisive response in the near future? One thing is becoming increasingly clear. The line between peace and conflict in this region is thinner than ever, and as both sides continue to navigate this high-risk environment, the world watches closely, knowing that the next encounter may not end as quietly. As tensions between Iran and the United States Navy continue to dominate headlines, the ripple effects are now being felt far beyond the waters where the confrontation unfolded. What began as a high-risk military encounter is quickly transforming into a global geopolitical crisis, with allies, rivals, and markets all reacting in real time. Across Washington, the sense of urgency has intensified. Senior officials are reportedly engaged in round-the-clock strategy sessions, evaluating not just the immediate threat, but the broader implications of Iran's increasingly bold posture. For many policymakers, this incident is no longer being viewed in isolation. It is part of a larger pattern that could signal a shift in regional power dynamics. International allies of the United States are also watching closely. Key partners in Europe and the Middle East have begun issuing cautious statements, urging restraint, while quietly preparing for potential escalation. Behind the scenes, diplomatic channels are working overtime, attempting to prevent a situation that could spiral into a wider conflict involving multiple nations. At the center of global concern remains the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow but critically important passage that has now become the focal point of rising tensions. Even the slightest disruption here could send shockwaves through the global economy. Oil markets are already showing signs of instability, with traders reacting to the uncertainty and the possibility of future confrontations. For everyday Americans, the impact may feel distant for now, but experts warn that any escalation could quickly hit home. Rising fuel prices, economic volatility, and increased military commitments overseas are all potential consequences. The reality is clear: what happens in these waters does not stay there. Meanwhile, analysts are closely examining the strategic intentions of Iran. Some believe this is part of a broader effort to challenge U.S. influence in the region, testing the limits of American response while building leverage on the global stage. Others argue that internal pressures, economic challenges, political dynamics, and regional rivalries may be driving more aggressive behavior. On the other side, the United States Navy is now operating under heightened scrutiny. While its response so far has been measured and controlled, there is growing debate over how long that restraint can or should continue. Military leaders must balance the need to project strength with the risk of triggering a larger conflict that could draw the United States into another prolonged engagement. What makes this moment especially dangerous is the unpredictability. Unlike traditional warfare, where lines are clearly drawn, this confrontation exists in a gray zone where signals can be misinterpreted, intentions can be unclear, and reactions can escalate faster than anyone expects. In such an environment, even a minor incident can ignite a major crisis. Adding another layer of complexity is the role of technology. Advanced surveillance systems, drones, and real-time intelligence have turned modern confrontations into high-speed chess matches. Every move is tracked, analyzed, and responded to within seconds. While this increases awareness, it also reduces the margin for error. Decisions must be made instantly, and the consequences can be immediate. Back in the United States, public attention is growing. Social media platforms are flooded with speculation, analysis, and concern. Some voices are calling for decisive action, emphasizing the need to maintain global leadership and deter further challenges. Others are urging caution, warning that escalation could lead to unpredictable and potentially devastating outcomes. As the situation continues to unfold, one question looms larger than all others. What happens next? Will diplomatic efforts succeed in calming tensions, or are we witnessing the early stages of a larger confrontation that could reshape the global order? For now, both Iran and the United States Navy remain locked in a tense and uncertain standoff. The world is watching, waiting, and hoping that the next move, whoever makes it, does not cross a line that cannot be undone. As the standoff between Iran and the United States Navy intensifies, defense insiders are now warning that the situation may be entering its most dangerous phase yet. What the world is seeing on the surface, carefully worded statements and controlled military movements, may only be a fraction of what is truly unfolding behind closed doors. According to multiple strategic analysts, both sides are now shifting from reactive postures to proactive planning. This means preparing not just for another encounter, but for the possibility of rapid escalation. Military assets are being repositioned, communication networks are being secured, and contingency plans are being updated in real time. In modern conflict scenarios, preparation often signals intent, and that is what has experts on edge. The United States Navy, widely regarded as the most dominant naval force in the world, has a range of options at its disposal, from advanced destroyers equipped with missile defense systems to aircraft carriers capable of projecting power across entire regions. The U.S. military has the ability to respond swiftly and decisively. But with that power comes a critical challenge, knowing when and how to use it. On the other side, Iran has built its strategy around asymmetry. Instead of matching U.S. power directly, Iran relies on speed, unpredictability, and regional familiarity. Fast attack boats, coastal missile systems, and drone capabilities allow it to operate in ways that are difficult to counter using traditional military approaches. This creates a dangerous imbalance, one where even a smaller force can create significant disruption. What makes this situation even more volatile is the element of uncertainty. Intelligence reports suggest that both sides are attempting to read each other's intentions while simultaneously masking their own. In this high-stakes environment, misinterpretation becomes one of the greatest risks. A defensive move could be seen as offensive, a warning could be perceived as a threat, and in a matter of seconds, a standoff could become a full-scale confrontation. Behind the scenes, military planners are reportedly gaming out multiple scenarios. What happens if another close encounter occurs? What if a warning shot is fired? What if a vessel is damaged or a drone is taken down? Each possibility carries its own chain of consequences, and none of them are simple to contain. The strategic importance of the Strait of Hormuz continues to loom over every decision. Control over this narrow passage is not just about military dominance, it's about economic leverage. Any disruption here could send global oil markets into chaos within hours. For American households, that could mean sudden spikes in fuel prices, increased inflation, and broader economic uncertainty. Inside Washington, the debate is intensifying. Some officials argue that a stronger show of force is necessary to deter further challenges from Iran. They believe that failing to respond decisively could signal weakness and invite more aggressive actions in the future. Others caution that escalation, even if justified, could quickly spiral into a conflict that extends far beyond the region. Meanwhile, the psychological pressure is building on both sides. Military personnel operating in these tense conditions are trained for precision and discipline, but the reality of being in close proximity to a potential adversary adds a human element that cannot be ignored. Stress, split-second decisions, and the fog of uncertainty all contribute to an environment where mistakes can happen, and when they do, the consequences can be immediate and severe. Adding to the complexity is the role of global perception. Every move, every statement, every shift in posture is being watched not just by allies and adversaries, but by the global public. In today's interconnected world, perception can shape reality. A single incident captured on camera and spread across social media could instantly change the narrative and increase pressure on leaders to act. Experts warn that we may now be entering a countdown phase, a period where tensions remain high, options narrow, and the likelihood of escalation increases with each passing day. It is a phase where diplomacy becomes more difficult, military readiness becomes more visible, and the margin for error becomes almost non-existent. For the American audience, this is more than just a distant geopolitical story. It is a reminder of how quickly global events can shift and how interconnected today's world has become. Decisions made thousands of miles away can have direct consequences at home, economically, politically, and socially. As the situation continues to evolve, one thing is clear: the line between strategy and conflict is becoming dangerously thin. Whether this standoff ends in de-escalation or erupts into something far more serious will depend on the next moves made by Iran and the United States Navy. And right now, the world is watching, because the next move could change everything. At this stage of the crisis, experts are no longer focused only on what has already happened. They're preparing for what could happen next. And the most dangerous possibility is also the simplest. One miscalculation, one misunderstood signal, or one unexpected moment, and a single shot could ignite a conflict far bigger than anyone intends. If direct confrontation breaks out between Iran and the United States Navy, the initial moments would be fast, intense, and highly coordinated. Military analysts suggest that within minutes, defensive systems would activate, missiles could be launched, and nearby forces would shift into full combat readiness. Modern warfare moves at incredible speed. Decisions are made in seconds, and consequences follow immediately. The first phase of escalation would likely center around control of the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow passage is one of the most important energy corridors in the world. Iran could attempt to disrupt global shipping using naval mines, fast attack boats, and coastal missile systems. Even a temporary disruption could send global oil prices surging within hours, triggering economic shockwaves far beyond the region. In response, the United States Navy would act quickly to secure the area and keep international shipping lanes open. This could involve coordinated operations using warships, aircraft, and advanced surveillance systems designed to detect and neutralize threats. However, every action would carry risk because any strike could lead to immediate retaliation. What makes this scenario especially dangerous is the risk of regional escalation. Iran has influence and strategic connections across the Middle East. A direct conflict could pull in other actors, turning a limited confrontation into a broader regional crisis. Neighboring countries might be forced to take sides, and existing tensions could flare up across multiple fronts. For the United States, this would present a complex challenge. Protecting its forces and maintaining stability while avoiding a prolonged war would require careful coordination. The United States Navy is built for dominance, but even overwhelming power must be used with precision in a situation where escalation could quickly spiral out of control. Back in the United States, the impact could be immediate. Rising fuel prices would likely be the first visible effect as global energy markets react to instability in the region, but the consequences would not stop there. Economic uncertainty, increased military engagement, and political debate could all follow, affecting daily life and national priorities. Meanwhile, global powers would not remain passive. Countries with strategic interests in the region would begin responding diplomatically and potentially militarily. Calls for de-escalation would grow louder, but history shows that once conflict begins, controlling its spread becomes far more difficult. Another critical factor is cyber warfare. In modern conflicts, battles are no longer limited to physical space. Both sides possess cyber capabilities, and escalation could include attacks on infrastructure, communication systems, and financial networks. This adds a new layer of risk, one where civilians could feel the impact even without being near the conflict zone. Despite these dangers, there is still a narrow path toward de-escalation. Diplomatic efforts, back-channel negotiations, and international pressure could play a key role in preventing the worst-case scenario. However, as tensions rise, that window becomes smaller with each passing moment. For viewers and citizens, this situation is a powerful reminder of how fragile global stability can be. What begins as a tense standoff can quickly evolve into something far more serious. The idea that a single decision could reshape the global landscape is no longer hypothetical. It is a very real possibility. As of now, no shots have been fired, but the silence is tense, filled with uncertainty. Both Iran and the United States Navy remain on high alert, fully aware that the next move could define the future of the region and possibly the world. And as the world watches closely, one question remains: will this crisis end in restraint or become the spark that changes everything? As the crisis between Iran and the United States Navy reaches a critical stage, the world now stands at a dangerous crossroads. After days of rising tension, military positioning, and global concern, the next moves from both sides could determine whether the situation calms down or explodes into something far more serious. Behind the scenes, diplomatic efforts are working at full speed. International mediators, regional allies, and global organizations are quietly pushing for de escalation. Communication channels remain open, even if indirectly, because in moments like this, dialogue can be the difference between stability and conflict. For Iran, the situation has become a strategic balancing act. After demonstrating its willingness to challenge U.S. presence, it now faces a difficult choice. Escalating further could trigger a powerful military response, while stepping back could weaken its position on the global stage. This makes every decision highly calculated and extremely sensitive. On the other side, the United States Navy is operating under intense pressure. It must maintain strength, protect its forces, and uphold global credibility, while also avoiding a conflict that could spiral out of control. Every move is being carefully measured, not just for immediate impact, but for long-term consequences. Military experts believe there are three possible paths forward. First, controlled de-escalation. Both sides reduce tensions through restraint and indirect agreements. Naval encounters become less aggressive, public messaging softens, and stability gradually returns. This is the outcome most global leaders want, but it requires discipline from both sides. Second, prolonged standoff. Tensions remain high with continued military presence and repeated close encounters. No direct conflict occurs, but the risk never disappears. This creates an ongoing state of uncertainty where a single mistake could change everything. Third, sudden escalation. This is the most dangerous scenario. A single miscalculation, miscommunication, or unexpected incident could trigger direct confrontation. Once that line is crossed, controlling the situation becomes extremely difficult, and the consequences could spread far beyond the region. The strategic importance of the Strait of Hormuz remains at the center of this crisis. As long as this vital route is under pressure, global markets will remain unstable and geopolitical tension will continue to rise. Stability here means stability for the world. Instability here affects everyone. For the American audience, this moment carries real significance. It highlights the role of the United States on the global stage and the challenges of maintaining security in complex regions. From economic impacts to national security concerns, the outcome of this situation could directly affect everyday life. At the same time, this crisis shows how modern conflicts have evolved. Power today is not just about military strength. It is about strategy, perception, technology, and timing. Both Iran and the United States Navy understand this, and their actions reflect a deeper geopolitical game. As the world continues to watch, every moment matters. Every decision, every signal, and every response could shape what happens next. And now, everything comes down to one reality. The next move will not just shape this crisis, it could define the future of global stability.